There are moments in baseball that stop time. Not the walk-off home runs. Not the championship celebrations. Not the contract announcements that break the internet. The moments that truly stop time are the quiet ones. The ones where a pitcher stands 60 feet and 6 inches away from a batter, goes into his windup, and delivers something so precise, so unhittable, so absolutely unreachable, that even the most experienced commentators in the country forget how to speak. That is exactly what happened when Shohei Ohtani reached 700 career strikeouts. The stadium fell into a strange hush. The commentator booth went silent for 3 full seconds, 3 seconds that felt like minutes, before one voice finally said what everyone was already thinking. No one can stop him now. And just like that, the entire United States of America had to face a truth it had been slowly approaching for years. Shohei Ohtani is not just a great baseball player. He is not just a two-way phenomenon. He is not just a marketing icon or a cultural crossover sensation. He is the most dominant pitcher of his generation. And the numbers, 700 career strikeouts, 9 in a single game, are only just beginning to tell the full story. Let's go back to the game itself. Because before we talk about what 700 means, we need to understand how he got there. 9 strikeouts in a single outing. That is not a performance. That is a statement. From the very first inning, it was clear something historic was happening. Ohtani's fastball was sitting at the top of the zone with a precision that looked almost mechanical, except no machine has ever moved like this. His splitter was diving out of the strike zone at angles that batters were helplessly chasing, committing their swings to pitches that simply weren't there anymore by the time the bat came through. The opposing lineup, one of the more experienced batting orders in the league, looked like they were facing a pitcher from a completely different sport. First strikeout. Second. Third. By the middle innings, the booth was no longer talking about the game in the traditional sense. They were doing what sports commentators do when they witness something that defies their usual vocabulary. They started reaching for historical comparisons. They mentioned names from the past. They pulled up numbers on their tablets. They searched desperately for something to anchor what they were watching to something they had seen before. They found nothing. By the 9th strikeout, the broadcast had shifted entirely. This was no longer a game recap. This was a historic milestone being documented in real time. And when the final out was recorded, when that 700th career strikeout was officially registered, the commentator's voice dropped to a near whisper. No one can stop him now. Not a celebration. Not a shout. A quiet, almost reluctant acknowledgement that the landscape of baseball had just shifted permanently. Numbers in baseball carry weight. But not all numbers carry the same kind of weight. 700 career strikeouts is not just a statistical milestone. It is a threshold. It is a dividing line between pitchers who are very good and pitchers who belong to a different category entirely. Consider this: the pitchers who populate the all-time strikeout leaderboards are names that get spoken in reverent tones. These are careers that span decades. These are men who dedicated 15, 17, 20 years of their professional lives to accumulating strikeouts one at a time, through injuries and slumps, and rebuilt mechanics and reinvented arsenals. And Ohtani has done this while also being one of the most dangerous hitters in the game. That is the part that the American commentators keep returning to. That is the part that makes the silence in the broadcast booth feel earned rather than theatrical. Because they are not just watching a great pitcher accumulate strikeouts. They are watching a man who, on his off days from pitching, is stepping into the batter's box and making pitchers nervous. The strikeout total doesn't just represent dominance on the mound. It represents something philosophically disruptive to how baseball has been understood for over a century. You are either a pitcher or a hitter. That is the rule. That has always been the rule. Ohtani does not follow rules. Here is what gets overlooked in the celebration of milestones: the work that made them possible. Ohtani's 9 strikeout performance was not an accident. It was not a hot streak or a favorable matchup or a lucky night where everything clicked. It was the product of preparation so layered and precise that the result looked inevitable the moment you understand how it was built. Start with the arsenal itself. Ohtani's pitch mix is one of the most sophisticated in the game. His fastball generates velocity that most pitchers only touch on their best days. But velocity alone does not produce 9 strikeouts against major league hitters. What produces strikeouts is deception, the ability to make a pitch look like one thing until it becomes another. His splitter is the weapon that has most consistently undone opposing lineups. It arrives at the plate looking like a fastball. The batter reads the spin, reads the trajectory, commits to the swing. And then the pitch drops. Not gradually, not in a way that the eye can track and adjust to, but suddenly, a drop that the body has already decided to ignore because the decision to swing was already made. This is what makes the 9-strikeout game so instructive. Because when you watch it closely, you see that the strikeouts are not random. They are not the result of overpowering hitters with pure velocity. They are the result of sequencing, of setting up a batter with one pitch in one count, adjusting what they expect in the next at-bat, and then delivering something completely different in a moment when the batter has no time left to recalibrate. This is chess, not just baseball. And Ohtani plays it at a level that leaves opposing managers shaking their heads in the dugout. Now let's address the conversation that is spreading across every sports media platform in America. Shohei Ohtani as the leading Cy Young Award candidate. For the unaware, the Cy Young Award is the highest individual honor a pitcher can receive in Major League Baseball. It is given annually to the best pitcher in each league, and it is voted on by writers who watch the game closely throughout the season. To be the leading candidate is to be recognized not just as excellent, but as definitively, unambiguously the best. And right now, that conversation is happening in earnest. The argument for Ohtani is built on more than the 700 strikeout milestone. It is built on consistency. It is built on the fact that, game after game, opposing lineups are being neutralized not occasionally but regularly. It is built on the kind of numbers that change how analysts build their models and how managers construct their lineups. But here is what makes the Cy Young conversation particularly remarkable this year. It is happening while Ohtani is also contributing at the plate. Previous Cy Young winners have been allowed to be purely pitchers. They ate, slept, trained, and thought like pitchers. Their entire physical and mental energy was channeled toward one role. Their preparation, their recovery, their film study, all of it oriented toward the art of getting hitters out. Ohtani is doing all of that. And then stepping into the box and making pitchers uncomfortable. The American sports media, which has spent years debating whether a two-way player could truly excel at the highest level of both disciplines simultaneously, is now confronting a different question entirely. Not whether Ohtani can compete at both. But whether, while competing at both, he is actually becoming the best at one. Let us be honest about what is really happening beneath the surface of the strikeout count and the Cy Young speculation. America is shaken. Not threatened. Not resentful. But genuinely, deeply shaken in the way that people are shaken when they encounter something they did not plan for and cannot fully categorize. Baseball is America's sport. Not just historically, but spiritually. It is woven into the national identity in ways that go far deeper than box scores. When something happens in baseball that has never happened before, it does not just register as a sports story. It registers as a cultural event. And Shohei Ohtani reaching 700 career strikeouts while simultaneously being a legitimate Cy Young candidate and an elite offensive contributor is that kind of event. The commentator who went quiet for 3 seconds in that broadcast booth wasn't just processing a number. He was processing the realization that everything he knew about how great players operate, the trade-offs, the specializations, the limitations that every athlete eventually bumps against, might need to be revised. Because Ohtani is not bumping against limitations. He is moving past them without looking back. So what should we actually take away from this milestone? Not just the 700. Not just the 9 strikeouts. Not just the Cy Young candidacy. What we should take away is this: we are watching a player rewrite the operating manual for what is possible in professional baseball. We are watching someone exist at the intersection of two demanding disciplines and thrive in both, not despite the difficulty, but almost because of it. The commentator who lost his words was not exaggerating for dramatic effect. He was being precise. Because when you watch Ohtani take the mound, when you watch the splitter drop out of the strike zone for the 9th strikeout of the night, when you see the counter tick over to 700 career punch-outs, you realize that whatever limitations you had assumed were universal might only have ever been yours.